March 5th, Board of Commissioners meeting order. Let's start with the moment.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's no changes. I'll move the agenda.
I'll second.
The proposed agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed. Move on to the consent agenda, and I would like to pull items 2.3 and 2.22 out to say a few words about our appreciation for employees of the county, and in particular, our public safety communicators. Would anyone like to?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the consent agenda with those two amendments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Can you just clarify which numbers you're pulling?
3 and 22.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. I would like to just, looking at number 3 and number 22, we have on our agenda today the proclamation of April 26th, rather, as County Staff Appreciation Day. And then on number 22, we also have our agenda, on our agenda of April 10th through the 16th as Public Safety Communications Week. And I want to just add my own word of thanks to our dispatchers for all of their hard work over the past year and over the many, many years that they have been working for Sherburne County. Also, there are a few jobs that are as stressful and as vital to the work of the county to preserve and protect the public safety of our communities and our families. And for this, I really want to say thank you. And also, similar words of thanks are in order for all of our county employees, hardworking and dedicated men and women who have kept us strong and continued our critical programs and activities throughout this past year, which has really been challenging. And we have time, they have done so all the while still managing our efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. You are all appreciated, and I thank you all for your service. And with that, I would like to move approval of consent agenda items 2.3 and 2.22, and ask my colleagues to second this motion and also to add any words of thanks that you may have.
Madam Chair, I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
You said it well.
Yes, I appreciate that you pulled those. I think they are due a little more attention. So just thanks to all of our staff. And obviously, public safety is one of our biggest responsibilities as commissioners. So thank you for the dispatchers and all that work in public safety for our county.
Anyone else? Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Thank you very much. Okay, now we can move on to our announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Just a few quick announcements. First of all, a note, Commissioner Danielewski is not feeling super well, so she is at home and observing via WebEx. She is not going to be voting because we did not post this for a date and time certain for use of video telecommunications, but so we do not have to do roll call vote. It would just be the four of you voting. Second of all, just wanted to note, we are obviously moving into construction season. Expect a lot of regional work on on Highway 10, as well as starting very soon on the intersection of 101 and Highway 10 here in Elk River. So things are coming fast. Also, just to note, locally, Andrew put out a very nice list. I think you all received it. If not, we'll send it out, of all of our major transportation projects, so you're aware in your community meetings. And in particular, we note work already beginning on 169 and 4 in Zimmerman, so we'll be getting some questions as we start our design work and public discussions on that, and soil borings, as well as significant work on County Road 81 coming up this summer. Pivoting a bit to legislative activities, just an update for the board. Amanda was down the end of March and testified on the mentally ill and dangerous bill that we are helping sponsor. That is going fairly well and has been quite well received. The one comment made from the state agencies, which we would expect, is there just simply aren't enough beds, and therefore people get queued up or in a holding pattern, but really no opposition to the idea that if it's a state agency to a state agency, it should remain a state responsibility and not default to the counties. Jay has also been instrumental in working on moving, for the first time in many, many years, a significant funding package for all probation activities, including CPO counties and, in our case, community corrections counties. There's a possibility, strong possibility, that there actually may be additional funding provided for probation activities this year in the legislature. On the transportation note, we were successful in getting into the Senate Transportation Omnibus Bill funding for the 169 and 4 interchange. I think it's 16.1 million was listed in the Senate bill, which is a really good start. The House does not seem like they'll be doing earmark projects, but it does set us up for negotiations that we are there. We also received word that we will not have to have a hearing. Chair Newman is just going to move 3 days of hearings on the omnibus bill and not on specific projects. So the fact that we were in there was, in essence, our hearing. Second of all, just note that also in the transportation bill was funding for preliminary design work for improvements in this, sponsored by the city of Becker, for Trunk Highway 25 north and US 10 west of the city of Becker. So we're monitoring that and observing that as well, because of course on the south side it's a county road. So we'll see how that progresses. And then last but not least, just so the board is aware, also in that transportation bill was a language to eliminate North Star. And so that is in the Senate transportation bill. And we expect that because it was listed in the omnibus bill, and assuming it stays in there, that it will be a topic of negotiations at the end of session. Finally, just a couple other notes, not necessarily county-only priorities, but there is some movement on county program aid. Really, we're following what's happening with local government aid discussions, but there has been some conversation about county program aid. And then recently, quite a bit of interest in property tax relief, and specifically whether it makes sense to move the homestead market exclusion to a different level or different formula, given the increases in valuations across the state. So we'll be continuing to watch those as we get to the end of the legislative session. And then last but not least, and I'm assuming Commissioner Dolan and Commissioner Smeesing will note this as well, we did have a tour of the Big Elk Lake property with Representative Dowd to just update him on that possible project. So and that went quite well. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Now we can move on to our first public hearing, and we will be considering amendments to the subsurface sewage treatment system, low-interest loan program ordinance. And we have Dave with us today. Hi.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. So included in your packet are proposed changes to our SSTS long-term loan program. Changes include, they're on page 7 of the ordinance, or actually it would be page 221 of your agenda packet. I'll wait till you guys get to there. Do you see that? 7 of 9 of the ordinance, 221 of your agenda packet. So changes are to provide for 95% of loans to single-family residents that exceed
20,000. Currently, we have a max funding for residential properties of 20,000. We're starting to see an uptick in loans exceeding 20,000. So staff is proposing to allow for a funding mechanism for loans that exceed 20,000 and fund that at 95%. The second change is to interest rate. Previously, we had provided for adjustment based on CPIU Midwest. It would come out February of every year. We would take a look back and see what the interest rates are and make those adjustments. The Auditor Treasurer's Office made it very clear to me that that would be extremely challenging and could provide for possible errors. So staff is proposing that we go back to just a flat rate, set it at 2%, and that would be locked in for all loans. Those are the only changes that we are recommending. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I think these were all discussed in part of a workshop that we had on this a few weeks back. Correct?
We did not have a workshop on this, Commissioner. No.
We did go through this at
Nope.
some point.
So these are new recommendations to change. And
I thought there was some discussion on the interest rate. I mean, that 2% currently is a pretty reasonable rate, but it's going to change significantly in the next year. I don't know if we want to try to follow what the market is or not. I think that's something we can look into in the future. I'm fine with this as it is, but I think that's something that should be considered.
okay.
Madam Chair, and to Felix's point, we can come back and revisit this annually or what have you, depending on where it goes. I think, the changes make sure that the program can do what it was created to do, and that's get septics into compliance, but I don't have any problem with the amendments. It makes it easier to administer, and it makes sure that we take care of leaky sewage septics.
What you might be thinking, Commissioner, is I did do a write-up to the board at a previous board meeting asking to set a public hearing. So there was a detailed explanation in your board packet regarding the interest rates and why staff is recommending that we just set it at a flat 2%.
Okay, are you looking for a motion to approve?
Excuse me.
Well, first we have to,
Public hearing.
Diane, and then we have to open it for public
Okay.
comments, okay.
Excuse me, Commissioners, just wanted to kind of bring up, and the reason that we brought this up to Dave and where it would be problematic with our tax system is that we cannot adjust and do amortization schedule with variable rates in there, and there's no way to set that out. So if somebody wanted to pay it off early or whatever, there's going to be so much manual calculation and pulling it out of the system, and then as to where it's going to be and at what time period. If we set it at the one rate, like normally is done for our other special assessments and whatever, it will handle it correctly.
Well, and that could be accomplished if it came back to the board and we changed the rate, and then they'd all be the same, and it would work for you, right?
We'd have to change the rate again in the system.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. But the system will accommodate that if we
Right.
board decided to do it.
Okay, so should we open, do you have any more comments, Dave, before
I
we?
do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, so should we open the public forum then? If there's anyone that wants to come forward, the public hearing rather, and make any comments? Is there anyone that would like to come forward in the public hearing and make comments? Seeing none, then shall we close the public hearing? And then we can go forward with consideration of approval. Is there any further?
I'll move approval.
Okay,
I'll
motion-
second.
Excuse me?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the following conduct of a public hearing and consideration of comments received, approve and adopt the amendments to the subsurface sewage treatment system low-interest loan program ordinance as presented and recommended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, so now we can move on to our second public hearing is to undertake decennial redistricting of county commissioner districts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Just a note that we cannot open the public comment until 9:18. So Diane and I will be brief, but I'm guessing we can cover 3 minutes. So real quick, as Diane makes her way up to the podium to give you an update, this is the statutorily required public hearing to consider redistricting based upon the results of the decennial census and then the state redistricting that has occurred. Just a note for you, originally we anticipated to have a resolution ready for board consideration. We were unable to complete that, so our recommendation would be that after the public hearing and any discussion you hold, that we just hold over any action till at least the 19th of April, just simply because we don't have the material ready for you to act on it. With that, our original plans that we'd presented to you have been pared down significantly based upon actions of cities and townships, and so Diane will give you an update on where things stand.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning again, Commissioners.
Good morning, Diane.
Yes, just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on our redistricting processing. That's process going through. All of the townships and stuff have met, and from the resolution and stuff that they have submitted in to us is that they're not going to be splitting out any additional districts, you know, to help us with the equal distribution of representatives amongst all the county commissioners. So therefore, that's why we're looking at going down the road and to postpone this until at a later date. We do have until the 26th of April to do the final, to submit into the Secretary of State's office. We have done all the publications in the paper and published it for 3 weeks in our legal newspaper. And we do have copies on our website as well. And so if there's been any conversations, or I have not received any emails or any other conversations from the public in regards to any of the information that we've put out there. So that's what I've got right now as an update. So that's all we have.
So we can review for you real quick. On the screen is the current commissioner districts, and you'll see them highlighted in different colors. And then going down to the second map, this we had listed to you early on and published as option 1. And as of today, this is actually the only option that remains. The change on this particular map is in the Elk River precinct areas. So in the far lower right corner of your map, there was an adjustment of the precincts and the wards within the city of Elk River. The result of this redistricting would be that the 2 commissioner districts that are up for elections this year would remain. And then in addition, 2 other commissioner districts would also be required to have an election because of change in population represented. So at this point, option 1 would dictate that districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 hold elections this year. The other aspect which we have not brought for board action would be then establishing the terms of districts, and the board does have discretion to do that, so we'll be presenting that on the 19th as far as which districts would be up for election for 2-year terms or 4-year terms. So that will come as an action item, as well as establishment of the commissioner districts. We don't anticipate that this will change between now and the 19th, but at this point, again, option 1 is the only one that we can present, given the actions that the townships and cities have taken or are anticipated to take.
Correct. Thank you. Yeah.
With that, if the board is ready, we've reached the point of a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to allow community and public input into the redistricting process, and to consider any maps or designations brought forth by the public.
Okay. So now we can open our public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to make comments? We come to the introduce, if it, yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and then,
My name's Cheryl Sill, and I'm coming out of Baldwin Township. So is this map posted on the website? Yes. Along with the old one? So we can see a comparison? Cool. That's all I want to know.
thank you.
Yeah, just focus on the line that goes through Elk River. That's the only change.
You can go ahead.
We'll have staff get back to you.
And introduce yourself, please, sir.
Greg Felber, 25409 189th Street, Northwest Orac. Why are all the other ones, what is happening that the other ones are not feasible at this point in time? The ones with more changes, like excuse me, when I review these, the one I thought made the most sense was number 5. And I just was wondering what specifically, why we can't use any other option other than 1, which has minimal change.
With the permission of the chair, I can address the question. The other options we had proposed, which are online still, were based upon a request to different townships or cities to consider creating multiple precincts. So in particular case, I'm trying to remember, option 5, I think, would have required Becker Township to create a second precinct.
Okay.
They elected not to do that, and so as a result, that is not a viable option. So in particular, option 2 was a request to Orac Township, which they decided not to do. Options 3, 4, and 5 were requests to Becker Township to create different precincts, and they also elected not to do those. So as a result, we don't have precincts that we could use to create different commissioner districts.
So
Thank you very much.
to clarify a little bit, our lines have to follow precinct lines. So unless there's a precinct line established in either of those townships, there's no line for us to follow.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? I think I have to say this 3 times, so. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Seeing none, then we can close the public hearing, and we will continue to talk about this at a later date on probably the 19th. Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate that very much. Okay, so now we can move ahead to open forum. Do we have anyone signed up for open forum?
We do, Madam Chair.
Okay, so before we call anyone forward, we will read through the directions for how the open forum is conducted.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. The purpose of the open forum section of the County Board meeting is to allow public input and/or information to be presented to the County Board that does not require action by the Board. Personal attacks of any kind against another person, commissioner, or employee are not allowed. Campaign-style presentations are also not allowed. The time limit is 3 minutes per speaker, with a maximum of 5 speakers at the open forum. The time limit may be shortened or extended at the discretion of the board chair. Discussions that require additional time beyond the original 15 minutes will be recessed and continued following the conclusion of the regular board business meeting agenda items. All input or information is to be addressed to the Board of Commissioners as a whole and not to members of the audience or individual commissioners. Speaker handouts are considered public information, and the county may make copies of such handouts for the public if needed. The county board chair will ensure that the open forum policy is followed. We also note, although there have been a conclusion of the public hearings, that information that is subject to the public hearing should not and will not be considered by the board during public comment. We are asking that any written or submitted comments for public hearing items should be conducted in accordance with the instructions for the public hearing, so to ensure that the opinions become part of the official record for consideration. And then one last note is If there are groups that are planning to speak, we do ask consideration of one person representing the entire group. However, we don't allow stacking of time, like you giving your time to somebody so they can speak for a longer period.
Okay, so who is our first?
Our first speaker is Paul Peterson of Big Lake, speaking on voting Dominion machines.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Paul Peterson, live at 341 Park Avenue West, Big Lake, Minnesota. I am an election voter judge, and I have two issues that I think need to be addressed at some time. Issue number one, prior to the election, I contacted our city coordinator, Gina Wolbeck, and told her that I was available to help with early voting. She assured me that this responsibility was being covered by the Sherburne County staff. I asked if the party proportions, Republican and Democrat, would be honored by the staff. She assured me that this was not a problem. I still had questions. I mentioned that I would also be willing to work with the absentee ballots. She responded, her response was the same, thank you, but that is covered by the county staff. Troubled by her answer, I mentioned that the employees of the county were all union members and may not provide Republican representation. Should that be considered? Shouldn't that be considered? Don't worry, that won't be a problem, was her reply. In learning later that the county staff was, in fact, supplemented by hiring temp workers hired by the county. No knowledge of the temp workers' affiliation, but none of the county workers are listed on the Republican voter roll. 18 county staff workers, no Republicans, 14 temp workers, no recorded party affiliation. There is a law that requires that it's proportionate. Second issue, 2 hours into election on voting day, our voting machines stopped processing ballots. Precinct 1 in Big Lake could not process votes. The voters were told that they could vote, but their votes would not be processed until the machine was repaired. Most were willing to trust us to process the ballots. Second voting machine was delivered and set up, still no good. After some time, we were back in business and ballots were being processed. I asked Brad, the head judge, what was the problem. He said that he had contacted the machine company and they were able to help him get it fixed. Everything seemed okay at the time, but after hearing about the problems with Dominion, I can't keep from thinking something more nefarious may have been happening. Could our conservative Big Lake voters have overloaded the algorithm installed in the machine and caused the breakdown? How can we find out?
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. And do you have anything you want to leave with us?
I do. I have a copy. I can leave this copy.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, next we have Cheryl Sill speaking on SARI and the ICE detention.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Sill, and I live in 13239 Lake Place Road up in Zimmerman in Baldwin Township. And I am a Christian woman and a retired teacher, so I feel obligated to come to you and make presentation about our ICE contract that I am not real pleased about. I myself am not a good writer, so I have found a really good article, and I will email you the link to this report or article that has been written. It is put out by Hannah Johnson at the ACLU. And I won't read it all since I've only got 3 minutes, and I tend to be a slow reader when I get going. So I just feel it's important that we all get educated on this issue and are aware of what's happening in our county. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, is detention. It's a civil detention. It is not intended to be punishment for criminal conviction, though conditions are often as bad or worse as those you'd find in prison, particularly our Sherburne County Detention Center. It may be shocking to learn that the U.S. government detains tens of thousands of people each day in immigrant detention. ICE detention exists to ensure people who are currently going through immigration proceedings in the U.S. attend their court dates. An immigration judge can also determine a person's release, which presents a danger to the community. A subjective determination is what that's called. ICE detention also serves to effectuate deportation orders for people who are out of legal options to stay in this country. Generally, people in ICE detention are in limbo, waiting to learn whether they can legally remain in the country or whether they will be deported. Why should we be concerned about immigration detention? This rips tens of thousands of people away from their families and their communities. And I personally have heard of Sherburne County detention, detainees that were finally freed after many months, and heard some of their stories. They rip them apart from their families and communities, including longtime residents who are neighbors, coworkers, and family members. This country has not always spent taxpayer money to lock up immigrants. I myself am a product of Eastern and Western European immigrants, and I'm thankful my ancestors took that move, as we all see in Ukraine today. Until the 1980s, when the private prison profiteers began to flourish, immigrants were free while they navigated through the legal process to become citizens.
Just so you know, your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, okay.
So if you
So
want to just close.
thank you. I myself am out here every Wednesday along with another group. Our SARI group is Sanctuary and Resistance to Injustice. And I'm sorry, I only have a couple free little freebie handouts I'll give, so you can hand those out. In particular, Lisa Fabi, since she's my representative for Baldwin County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else?
I do not have anybody else stand up, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we will go ahead and close our open forum. Thank you. And now we can move ahead to our regular agenda. And the first one is to receive 2021 activities update from the Great River Regional Library. And we have Karen with us. Greetings.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, for some time this morning, and commissioners of the Sherburne County Board. I have with me Nancy Bunting, who is our Library Services Coordinator in St. Michael. And while St. Michael might not be part of Sherburne County, we all are part of the same system, and there are definitely Sherburne County residents using one of our more popular branches in the region. So she'll talk a little bit about how that programming activity looked at a local level. I want to first thank Commissioner Phoebe for being on our board and being our chair for the last 2 years, and Sherburne County citizens Mary Eberly and Jane Dietz, who are also members of the Great River Regional Library Board. Happy National Library Week. This is the week that we celebrate across the country all the great things happening in libraries. Last year in 2021, a year ago, we were still trying to figure out how many people could be in a room. And yet when you look at the annual statistics for the library system, you can see it was actually a fairly normal year if you just look at the numbers. So you can see on the slide there, that's a picture of our annual report. Some of our bigger legacy programs happened we took advantage of the fact that we have performers that can go outdoors, and Nancy will probably talk a little bit about some of those programs that happened at the branch. The other big story in our annual report was the Story Stroll project that Sherburne County was a major partner in. We're continuing to expand that project this year, and it's actually a really fabulous partnership with the parks system and the library system, offering outdoor opportunities for people to enjoy literacy at the same time. So we're really grateful for that partnership. In 2022, at the beginning of the year, we went fines-free, which was a very big shift in philosophy. We still collect money if people don't bring their books back, but the board took a real hard look at fines and determined that it was actually not a great way of providing library service, especially those people who have access to transportation issues or just have a hard time getting to the library for other reasons. So we've eliminated fines on materials. That was a second step in that fines-free process. In 2019, we'd actually gone fines-free on juvenile materials. And as a result, a larger percentage of our circulation has become juvenile circulation. We don't know if that trend will change now that all materials are fines-free. That was a major undertaking and really a good way of opening access across the region to all kinds of different people. The other big initiative starting at the beginning of this year is an additional open hours at 27 of our libraries across the region. We focused on our smaller locations that had fewer open days and open hours, and Becker and Big Lake were recipients of 3 additional open hours in each of their communities. And that has allowed for more consistent schedules there. We have more hours on Tuesday in Big Lake in particular, which was a day several years ago that they weren't open at all. So we're hoping that increases access to our residents in the coming year. The other thing I wanted to note, we do have a vacancy in Elk River. Our library services coordinator, Robbie Shackey, has moved to another city. So we are in the process of filling that role, and we look forward to our new face coming in the door soon. We're hoping to make an offer this week. So the other thing I wanted to really highlight from 2021 is the digital library activity. In the midst of COVID, that was one of our major points of access at the library system, and that continued to be true last year. And what has happened now over time is, it used to be St. Cloud was our top circulating library, and then Elk River, and then Buffalo, and then Monticello. Well, all of those numbers have shifted over time. The digital library is now number 2, and Nancy now runs the library as of last month that is circulating the second most number of items. So that shift in activity across the region is something we're trying to address in the coming year, because we don't know how much of that is going to just be a remnant of the pandemic and how much we'll see continue to change in the coming year in those libraries where the circulation hasn't quite picked up to what it was in 2019. The other major shift was in computer use. We used to have over 111,000 computer uses across the region, and we've only gotten back to about half of that. But we suspect not only is it a remnant of the pandemic, it is also a result of us offering a new service called Print to Go, which doesn't, if you want to print something at the library, you no longer need to use a library computer. You can come in, use your phone, and just print. And so that's shifted some of that computer usage. We're still having stations in our libraries, but we are looking at downsizing some of those stations in the coming years. And I'll turn it over to Nancy to talk about some of the other cool stuff that's happening in our libraries in the past year.
Thank you, Karen. As she said, I am from the St. Michael Library, and today I wanted to highlight one of the key programs that we have every year, and that is Summer Reading Program. We had over 10,000 young people sign up for Summer Reading Program region-wide. And the importance of Summer Reading Program is very strong. I think some of you have probably heard of Summer Slide, and if you haven't, that's basically where the kids leave school in the spring with a strong level of reading and math for their age group, and then come fall, the teachers will test them again, and they'll have slipped a little over the summer. And so that's always been important to Great River, but it became even more important because there was a new term out there called COVID slide. And so with COVID slide, obviously with the kids not being in school and in that routine, there was even more of a slide. So we knew going into the summer last year that Great River would play a key role in helping these parents keep their kids or get their kids reading again or keep them reading all summer long. So last summer, we hit an all-time high. We had 1,600 kids do our summer reading program. And of that 1,600, 200 were, I call them babies, 0 to 3, which is, that number increased by at least 30%. And again, that brings in playing, singing, read to the child, so key in the pre-reading skills that they need. We had 1,200 school-age kids, and we had 200 teenagers. And altogether, they put in thousands of hours of reading. The other thing about that, though, that was really fabulous was that we invited teens to come in and volunteer to facilitate handing out, signing up the kids, handing out the prizes and incentives, and the key, one of the key prizes is books. So what happened there was we had over 340 hours of volunteer time. And that's really key because these young people really want to be a part of the community, and they also, you know, need that connection. And so it was really a positive thing. We're looking forward to this summer to making that happen again. It's going to be a lot of work. If we go over 1,600, we're a little scared because that was a lot. But you know, with all those volunteers, I think we'll really nail it. So yeah, and so we're hoping Great River is going to be working on that again this year, and we hope for bigger numbers. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Thank you so much for all the work that you do. I know that many people that I know personally appreciate the use of the library and the fact that it's here in our communities throughout the county, and I really thank you so much for all your work.
Sure.
Yes.
So I just want to thank Karen and Nancy for coming in today. Karen and I got to know each other really well when I chaired through especially COVID and all the happenings that have happened in the last couple of years. And I would encourage all of my board members and staff to take time to visit a local library and see some of the amazing things that they're doing. Really proud of the initiatives to break down barriers to access for people through the fines-free program. Some people are like, fines-free? Are people ever going to bring their library book back? And what we're proving is they bring them back just as much. And those people that maybe weren't coming in the door because they had that fine and couldn't pay it or were just not proud of that, whatever reason, they've come back. So really proud of that. Libraries are, bottom line, working at breaking down barriers in many, many ways, and it's been a great initiative for me to be a part of, to be on the board. So I welcome all of you to visit your local library.
And if I can just add a couple things. Keisha, do you want to let Joel in on the website, by the way? Joel on the website. But also add just a thanks for the great partnership, especially during COVID. The libraries were incredible partners and really created accessibility for folks who you know, were limited by the pandemic. And so the range of services offered was just amazing, and we really appreciate the partnership.
I also just want to highlight the Story Stroll and the partnership with our Parks Department. That was really great in our parks. So, and we're going to be doing that again this summer. So.
Yeah, you know, the pandemic has been hard, but there's been some really cool stuff that's come from the innovation that it forced us to do. And I appreciate the added opportunity.
Madam Chair, echo Lisa's statements. There are tons of positive feedback on the story strolls. It was probably one of the things that I heard most about last year. So kudos on that. Just a question on the Sartell locker system that you have. Is there any plans to implement that system in a different location at all? Or is that use expanding, or is that going to be a one and done thing?
Good question. We just signed a new 6-year agreement with Sartell last year, so we've kind of moved beyond the pilot phase. We learned some stuff, like the lockers are actually a piece of technology that becomes obsolete, so we've now entered into a lease agreement rather than a purchase agreement. We've had a couple of cities actually ask about expanding it to those locations. The thing about Sartell to remember is it is actually mostly funded by the city of Sartell. And so in order for a city to add that service, they would have to agree to fund that system. And at this point, nobody's taken that next step of saying, yes, we're ready to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if a Zimmerman or a St. Joseph or a Otsego in the next 4 to 5 years decide to take that next step, because it has been a fairly successful pilot out on Sartell.
Yeah, Zimmerman's actually what I had in mind. Is there a report or some type of white paper that shows the outlines of that program so we can kind of see how the funding breakdown works for the Sartell location?
We are in the process of updating our library development plan this year, which is kind of the concept that moved forward and became Sartell. So I would expect that that report, when it's done at the end of the year, would have the information you're looking for.
Okay, yeah,
And,
the reason I ask is I think, if we knew what it costs, I think there's some pretty good potential for, public-private partnerships with sponsorships and stuff like that in the community, so, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think Zimmerman presents a unique challenge. Sartell is like 10 minutes from the St. Cloud Library. Zimmerman's not on an existing delivery route, so that would probably be the biggest barrier with that particular community, but not insurmountable.
Yep, their tax dollars pay for the library too, so.
Yep,
You gotta make
exactly.
sure they can use it.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I was on the board when we built the library in St. Cloud, and your headquarters are in there. I'm wondering, how's the facility, I mean, we're starting to get out, what is it, 12, 14 years old, something like that now? Is it adequate? How's it working out for your headquarters there?
You know, the building has a personality all of its own, but I would say it's aged fairly well. And I think part of that was we went through some difficulties with the boilers a couple of years ago, and the HVAC system in particular, so we've kind of worked those bugs out. The big looming issue right now is one of the chillers is going out, and there's 2, and it's actually behind the artwork, if you remember the tailpipes.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to use a crane to get it out when they do replace it. But, overall, the building was built with a forward-thinking group, and it seems like we've been able to use the spaces even in the midst of all the change that's happening. I think the biggest update that probably will need to happen is in the teen space. When we put that teen space in, kids were using laptop or desktop computers. Now the needs are different. So, that's more of a local conversation, I think, than a regional one. And I'm hopeful now that the city of St. Cloud has moved offices just across the street, that relationship will become even stronger, so.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can move on to our next item, which is to receive Farm Friends update and consider parking lot project approval. And we have Jean Johnson with us.
We also have a familiar face, so
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Good to be back here to see you.
It's a familiar
Well-
face and voice.
And you all know Jean as well, so too familiar.
I have a question. Bruce, who was the familiar face?
actually, I was referring to Dan. He's in the back of the room.
So I'm just here to tell you a little bit about what has been going on at the barn. The last time we were here, I had just started getting involved, and now I've been involved for over a year. So if we could see some pictures. Oh, I suppose I have to do that, huh? They're individuals, just let me know which one you would want. Just do the first, whatever's first. Okay. Does that look like a familiar face? That is the very own Bill and Margaret Cox outhouse from their property, and it got moved there this summer. And it will not be in use, but it will be refurbished. Next. This is a major update that happened this summer. Larry Woolhouse from the Becker area spent many, many, many hours putting that together. The treads were donated by Hercus. Very little of that had to be purchased, but it meets every code you could think of, and it's very sturdy, and it's also a beautiful stairway up into the hayloft. This is how the barn looked in the spring and summer this year, a little unfinished looking. Then we built on the milk house. When the barn was moved, the milk house had to be left behind, and the plan was always to build a new milk house. So the board contracted with Steve Hool out of Clearwater, I believe. And he kind of masterminded the project, and we brought volunteers, and we built it. So, yeah. I thought you had 5.
There should be one more. Is there not one more? Is there 4?
Oh, the site plan. Oh, well, that's too bad, because the milk house is done except for the roof, and it looks very lovely and inside and out. And we have, well, Jean will tell you about all the plans we have moving forward, but this spring, the big issue will be, or the big project will be landscaping, because the barn is just sitting out in the middle of a field, and the grass was planted last fall, so that should come up, but we need some landscaping as well. All in all, it's starting, the building, the structure is moving forward very nicely.
Thanks, Mary Jo. Mary Jo's been a blessing for me with this project. I will say she is part of the mission and helps me get stuff done. So I'll just call it quits there. So with all the things that we've done this year, we have spent very, very little money. And a lot of, like the railing on the stairs was from somebody's pool deck. The treads on the stairs, of course, Hercus Sawmill. Those are 3.5-inch thick white oak stair treads. And he made those for us and donated them. A lot of the wood that we've used inside was donated by PRI, which is Gary's Poles, right across from Edling Farms in Becker. It seems like everybody we talk to has something to donate. We've been given tools, people want to give us equipment, which we're kind of steering away from unless it works. And if it's our needs, because we don't want to go that far with this project. However, last Friday I was invited out to a farm actually in Hennepin County where the owner is being, and I'm just going to say the term I know, is being pushed out by houses. He has houses on 3 sides. There's going to be another development to complete, so he will be totally encompassed by houses. So he has sold his farm, and he has purchased another farm. He was a dairy farmer, and he invited me out to his farm to go shopping. So I went shopping, and he's donating a grain bin for us. He probably will donate it taking down, hiring somebody to take it down for us. And we're gonna put it up on the site plan. It's not as big as the 28 feet, but it's in beautiful shape, and we're going to accept that. The other thing is a little, I wish I would have sent that picture in, but it's just a little like you have structures made of tin that are for feed. Like if you grind feed, you put it in this, and then it comes out the bottom, and then you can auger it in to wherever you're going to feed your animals. He had one for pigs, and it's little. It's like 10 feet tall, and it's going to be perfect for kids to be able to relate to what it is, being it's not 20 feet high. So those are a couple of things. He's got more stuff out there that we have access to, but I have to take a crew of board members out there before I take everything he has. So anyway, those are some of the things that are currently happening. And what we have scheduled for the year, we are selling 20 by 20 plots of land because, and we have 8 of them. So only 8 20 plots of land that will be planted where the future building is going to be built. And we're selling those to businesses, and like Pioneer is going to provide a seed corn or corn to grow a corn plot, a soybean plot. I think we might have pumpkins. We're going to have a variety of crops out there, and just a small area so kids can come out, take a look. Maybe we'll get a 4-H or some of those groups to come out and weed and water and watch them grow. And then in the backdrop of that, to the west, we're planting sunflowers. And the sunflowers will be a tribute to Ukraine, but also because they're beautiful, and they'll look really, really nice as a backdrop to the crops that we are planting. So that's what we got going for mid-May. We also are discussing having a neighborhood open house. And only for, if you've been to the barn on 27th, there's houses there, and it's kind of a secluded housing development, but there are neighbors. So we want to invite every one of those neighbors to come out, maybe at the planting time, and see the barn, see what we've got going. Because there are caretakers, so we want them to have some ownership in that. So then, May and June, July and August, we'll be maintaining the crops, weeding, hoeing, watering, flowers. Mary Jo's got huge plans for flowers around the buildings and property boundaries. We've been invited to do a fundraiser, which we've done, this will be our 5th year, and we get a donation, but we go to the Clearwater Rodeo grounds, and there's a fundraiser, it's called 3 of a Kind, and it's for homeless vets. And we grill the pork chops, we make sweet corn, we have potato salad, and the people go to that fundraiser, they come in, they pay to eat, and then the 3 of a Kind will give us a donation back. Then in July, we've been asked to do another fundraiser at the Clearwater Rodeo grounds. I think because we do too good for the 3 of a Kind, now they want us to do more, which is awesome. But this is for the rodeo itself, and it's the same kind of thing. We're going to grill the pork chops. We're going to have, we'll boil the sweet corn. I'm not sure what other additions they're going to have, but we will serve the food. We have no expense. We just go serve the food for them, and we get a donation. So that again is June 17th and July 16th. Felix, if you're writing that down. Mm-hmm. Thank you. In July 25th, we have Girl Scouts that are going to do a farm day camp for elementary age kids out there. It's one of the school, troops in Becker. Hopefully, as we move along, we're going to have more groups utilizing. That's what our mission is to provide educational opportunities in the agriculture sector to our youth and adults. So that's kind of our intentions for the year. And then I believe we have to proceed with the parking lot. So we want to put in the parking lot this year, and if you look up on the overhead, there we have, in our site plan, we have an in on the south and an out on the north. So we plan on putting that parking lot in, but we're going to, if you're in the parking lot and you're going to go out on your left, we're just going to curve that around on the future road because we don't know what's going to happen with that in the future. But we do have to have an in and an out. And the reason for that is buses and just to avoid congestion. And it's a good idea if that road gets busier in the future. So that parking lot will be Class 5 material. Bogart Peterson is drawing up those plans for the elevations, et cetera. And Syngelis will be putting the parking lot in for us. So other than that, that's all the updates I have. I want to engage the board kind of like on something different. Dan, can you help me? And Mary Jo, you can help me too. Felix, you're incognito right now. So I have a picture
Always.
here. I have a picture here. And if anybody has ever heard of Shark Farmer, which probably not, but on Shark Farmer, they go up to normal everyday people and they show them a picture of something that's related to a farm, and then they have to guess it.
Oh, boy.
If you're extremely bored or want some humor, find that show, because it's amazing what people answer. So if you'll go over there and show them this picture, those over there. And then if you go over here and you can show Felix, but Felix cannot talk. And then if anybody knows what that is,
Gene, public embarrassment is not a good way to get in our good graces here. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I know you.
Now it's you and me too. You go first.
Barb knows what it is.
who does know what it is? Raise your hand.
Well, I'm not sure I know exactly what it is, but
That makes me feel better.
Felix, do you know what it is?
Well, it looks to me to be.
Okay,
either-
shh.
I can see the bottom well enough to really, but I.
yeah, that's what, yeah. It's a planter, hand planter of some sort,
Okay,
and I don't know if it's potatoes or, I haven't seen one exactly like that, but
okay. What do you think, Lisa?
It's a hand planter of some sort.
Felix, you cannot call it a hand planter.
I can't see, but it looks like,
Sweet potatoes.
well, see, now there's gears and a worm drive. So you may have me stumped too. I think, just glancing at it, I thought it looked like it might be for dehorning, but.
So I'm just going to reiterate that our project is to teach kids and adults about farming. It's actually, Felix, you got another idea?
No,
It's a horn trimmer or horn cutter.
that's what I said, dehorner, but it looks like
Did he say that?
the ones I've seen are hinged differently than this. This would be.
Well,
for-
we were donated one, and I don't think they would allow me in the doors with a weapon like that. So then I found a picture of it on Google, and if you guys want to take a look at it, but
so did you say a corn?
Dehorner.
horn,
Corner.
Oh, dehorner, okay.
So for cattle that have
Well, I've
horns.
done dehorn cattle and I've used equipment, but nothing looked like this. So,
Well, usually you do it when they're young and there's a little
yeah,
shear.
and
It's
you
a
don't have to
smaller.
have that looks, I don't know how big that is.
They got
That
a
was
little
the-
big,
One
yeah.
of my,
It's about 36, 40 inches.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Any questions for us at all?
No, there'll be a test for you next time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll be ready.
you've set the table, Gene.
Okay, does the board have to maybe approve our parking lot exit to the audience's left?
Well, I don't know now that we didn't.
I got a question for you guys and maybe, is that future road, is that a future city road? Is that a future road that you guys are building?
What it is, back when John Bogart and I were kind of dreaming of what would go on out there, in their world, you have to intersect all roads. And so he just put that road in there, just because. So it's never, the future road is not on anybody's minds, not in any plans, it's just on our drawing.
Gotcha, so it's not, okay, that answers my question.
Yeah, we don't know what's gonna happen in the future with it, it's just on the paper.
In my understanding, if I'm understanding this correctly, we need to give direction based on the use of the land? Is that what we're looking at here, Bruce?
Yeah, Dan, do you want to explain the action, the motion, and?
Any improvements that are done to the property have to be approved by the county board, so that's why they're bringing it today. It is in the lease, the drawing, and the site map, but just to cover our bases, we wanted the board to approve the next step.
We also,
There is no financial impact either.
Correct.
no, and then also just under are we using class 5, did you decide, or DG?
Yes.
Class 5, so trying to build it to a standard that's appropriate, so.
Right, I guess that would be my next question. It would be built to the standards of Becker and Becker Township's building standards?
Yeah, Bogart is making up the plans, and Joss will do it according to
All right.
what has to be done. And just on a side note, those two, the approach in and the approach out, or in or out, or whatever, those two approaches are within the GRE transmission line easement. And we have applied for and received permission from GRE to do that.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made to approve the parking lot and seconded, and the parking lot improvement is indicated on the original site plan. So is there any further discussion?
You know, I will just add, I mean, I think that there has been conversation about that road and where that road's gonna go and whose it is going to be. And that's ongoing, and that, you know, that will be handled in the future, but this applies to the parking lot, so.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Gina Mary
Have
Jo.
fun.
You.
Okay. So now we move on to item number 3, which is to consider a conditional use permit for a permanent government structure, Orac Township Hall. And Lynn is with us this morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. These are the items from the March Planning Commission meeting. Orac Township is requesting a conditional use permit for a permanent government structure. This is located at 26401, 180th Street Northwest in Big Lake in Orac Township on 1.66 acres in the General Rural District. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 5 conditions listed in your packet and the findings of fact.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval with the conditions outlined and the findings of fact.
I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Okay, now we move on to our next item, which is item number 4, to consider the interim use permit for home business in an accessory structure cabinet making with Matthew Jacobs.
And this is located at 17929 62nd Street Southeast in Becker, in Santiago Township, on 10 acres in the agricultural district. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 11 conditions and the findings of fact.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion with the recommendations.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Okay. So now item number 5, which is to consider a conditional use permit for personal storage structure with 4 conditions and findings of fact recommended by the Planning Commission. Okay.
And this one's for Timothy Reber, or Timothy and Jody Reber. And this is in Palmer Township on 0.5 acres in the agricultural zoning district and within the shoreline overlay district of Lake Julia.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval as conditioned.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Move on to item number 6, which is to approve an interim use permit for Minnesota CSG 15 LLC for a solar farm with 19 conditions.
And this one was approved previously, but their 1 year to obtain a building permit had expired, so they came back in and went through the process again. This is on the Thomas Jr. and Penny Hammer Trust property. It's in Clear Lake Township on 50.5 acres in the agricultural district and within the orderly annexation Zone 3 district in Clear Lake Township. 19 conditions and the findings of fact.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval as conditioned.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion is passed.
Thank you.
Now, as long as we're doing trivia, as Dan's coming up for his item, he sent an email this morning, but it came too late for announcements. So the question is, we've been putting a lot of effort into broadband, and you know we were like 46th and then like 30th. So the question of the day is, where do you think we're ranked now, as of this morning, in the state for broadband access?
Low 20s, 22.
23.
22, 23,
20
Number
something.
1.
number 1. Now, Felix, you actually win the closest prize. Dan?
It's number 7.
Nice.
Wow.
It is a different set of parameters. It's just based on subscription. Over 90% of our residents have broadband access, so it ranks us 7th out of 87 counties.
Wow.
So we went from where?
Well, we were in the 40s, mid-40s, and now with this parameter, we're at 7. So a lot of improvement over the last 5-6 years.
My goodness, that's awesome.
It's really great.
We're getting so good, it's going to be tough to get the attention to get help.
Well, I'm here today on a different subject. This week we have 2 recommendations for approval for the ARPA dollars. The first is to hire an economic development coordinator. As we discussed at the workshop a couple of weeks ago, this position would be funded 100% with ARPA dollars in 2022, and then it would be phased into the levy over the next 2 years, with 2/3 being funded by ARPA and then 1/3 being funded by ARPA. So the total utilization of funds would be $238,000 over the next 3 years. So looking for approval of that expenditure.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of that expense.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
And we are currently recruiting for that position right now. It closes on Sunday. The second project is to improve equipment in the EOC. Some of the equipment in there is a little bit outdated, And I know, oh, Matt, you are here, so come on up if you want to explain what
He
the changes are.
snuck in.
Commissioners, good morning. Matt Albrecht, Sheriff's Office Information Services Director. Been asked to present today to speak about some upgrades to our Emergency Operations Center. This is the second phase of our upgrades to the technology in there. It's also the final phase to the upgrades. The proposal would be ARPA funded. And for consideration, it would be the replacement with some failed displays. We've got some equipment that's aged out and it's failing with a new video wall. Addition of some dedicated displays to our huddle rooms, which are the small rooms off of our Emergency Operations Center. That's so we can have additional meetings while larger meetings are going on in the larger space, which we don't have the ability to do today. Replacement of an aged video projector and some control panels that we have on the wall that are also failing and need to be replaced. Beneficiaries of these upgrades are obviously the EOC operators, but outside of the need for the space to manage critical events, the need for the EOC continues to expand as this space has become the largest and most capable space that the Sheriff's Office has to use. As a result of the upgrades, it'd be more effective and reliable presentation capabilities, the ability to maintain consistent and real-time data feeds from the state services and weather monitoring services, the ability to host sidebar meetings, as I mentioned, and most obviously the replacement of the failing equipment. For the project, there have been multiple RFPs requested. The equipment itself is about $82,596. The professional services is $14,280, totaling $96,876.78. This is a worst-case scenario because we're continuing discussions with our chosen vendor to find more cost-effective ways to accomplish the same level of service through alternative methods and equipment. So to conclude and summarize, EOC is looking for $96,876.78 in ARPA funding to complete our multi-phase operations center technology upgrade project. And I'll pause for any questions you have.
Any questions? Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion to approve this request?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Just,
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Chair, just, you mentioned that you're exploring, that this might be the maximum amount. So if you just let us know what you land on, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll let you know for certain. It may be a fair number of decrease, right? A pretty significant decrease. And the rationale behind it is the original proposal had a single very large video display, and we've asked them to give us proposals for separate individual displays, which should cut the cost down quite a bit, but we'll certainly let you know what that total cost is.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, okay. So motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Madam Chair, just one comment. During COVID, that was probably the room in this building, and I happened to be chair for that year. I spent more time there over that period of time than I have, and it's really necessary. Communications, contacts with the governor's office, and all those things that were needed to go on at that point occurred in that room. So I think a small investment to make sure we're up to date with it is worthwhile.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and that's along the lines of what I was going to say. It's one of those things that when you need it to work. So it's not really an investment we can shortcut. So it's an important piece of the services we provide to taxpayers. So.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now we can move on to Community Resource Investment Grant.
Yeah, staff is recommending approval of 5 grants totaling $148,849, and the list and the project summaries were included in your board packet. So looking for approval of those 5 grant awards.
Should we do them individually or together?
You can do them together.
You can do them together, okay. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, Dan, how many applications total did we get for the
We did
program?
receive 15 grants with a requested total over $1 million.
Okay.
So I was going to request or see if there's an appetite or desire. We had originally allocated $500,000 to the program. Is there a desire by the board to possibly go over that as we review the last 10 applications that came in? I think 8 or 9 came in the last 2 days, so Pretty typical for an application period.
Are all the applications that we're fielding, are they all meeting the general criteria?
We actually have a meeting Thursday to review them as staff.
Okay.
So after initial glance, yes, but we are going to go through a deeper dive later this week.
Our thinking was to vet them, and if they're vetted, bring them to you, but we also don't want to set up a situation where you're like, yeah, no, we need you to cut them. So if there's just a general feeling like we at least want to take a look at them, we'd bring them back. There's capacity in ARPA funding, but it is higher than what you'd initially expected. And there's a couple of large requests, which we expected. One you've already heard of, Promised Neighborhoods, and another one was
Couple school districts.
School districts. So
projects.
if they meet it, we'd like to bring them to you, but we also don't want to set that up if you're like not comfortable, so.
So, Madam Chair, so right now we've granted out 150, let's call it, and so we have a remaining $350,000 in capacity.
For about 800,000 in requests.
For about 800,000 in requests. Yeah, I personally, I mean, I don't want to, who was in the door first. I don't want to end up in that scenario. I guess I would be flexible enough to look at adding more funding to that program if it came to that. I don't want to just say carte blanche that we'll approve them, but I would be flexible. I don't know where the rest of the board's at there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I
I'd like
would,
to
yeah.
see some flexibility in that.
Okay, we don't have a specific request today, but in 2 weeks we'd bring that back and we'd have to amend our original resolution with a larger dollar amount.
I think Tim makes a good point. I would be opposed to first come, first served, shoveling the money out the door. I think that we should have some sort of where we bring them in and can rank them and put the money where we think it will do the most good. So.
And Madam Chair, Dan, if I remember correctly, we didn't put a cap on the asks on this. We just capped the program, right? So, yeah. So that's another thing we got to look at too. If we have some pretty substantial and large requests, whether we want to cut those requests or add more funding. So, yeah, I like the flexibility.
Yeah, and I think for some of those larger requests, to look at those requests and think through, are there other entities that could also support those requests that hopefully they're reaching out to?
And some do provide services in other counties, so we have to take that into effect.
Yeah.
It would be a percentage of the request based on the amount they serve in Sherburne County.
Okay.
Chair?
Was somebody else speaking?
Rayanne.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make a real brief comment. This is another part of our program that it takes a while for people to hear about it, unfortunately, as much as we do to try to promote this. And then I'm dealing with an organization that misunderstood. They just heard ARPA and they assumed it was the part to relieve the costs of things like wages and such. And being as a lot of these nonprofits, they don't have, they're a volunteer organization. So I do know that there's one that needs to come back and kind of redo, but the program is very much an important thing that would hit the marks of what we're trying to accomplish through this part of the funds we're trying to get out. So I do agree with the not first come, first serve, as people start to realize these funds are a possibility.
As long as they had their application in by the deadline, we are allowing them to alter it a little bit.
Okay.
But they did have to have the application in originally by the deadline.
Makes sense.
So,
And then going forth, I think just to get a good sense of where we're at with the ARPA dollars that we have, looking at these programs, many of them that are on our list were absolute safety nets for people during the pandemic. So just want to look at that in general, where we're at, and do we need to have another round of sorts?
yeah, if you're okay, we'll update the buckets and bring them back to you in 2 weeks. We'll have a better handle on this too, so. Tim?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, just based on the discussion, before you take a vote, I just want to clarify, is the vote to approve these grant awards and these specific amounts, locking these specific amounts in? Or is the motion and the vote to approve these grant awards subject to final determination of the amounts when you see them all together? In other words, if you have to, I'm responding to the first come, first serve.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too. Would the first come, first serve issue delay decisions on these?
So essentially, the question is, if we got to the end and we said, all right, we have X amount of dollars, we're going to cut everybody by 10% versus, I see where you're going.
Yeah, I think the two options are, if you're comfortable, approve these because they were in, they've been vetted, they're within the budget parameters. If you want, you can hold them 2 weeks and chew on everything at the same time.
So what do we do with the motion that we've got?
Well, you could theoretically just table this for 2 weeks if the board's inclination is to say, no, we want to look at everything in one big package. Or we've recommended these to you, they've been vetted, they meet the criteria, and there's a budget for it. You can approve these and just have that as your baseline starting in 2 weeks.
I can't remember who made the motion.
I think it was Tim.
I don't think I was involved.
Does anybody know who the
This last,
Oh, it was me. So
Does it make more sense to table?
I'm leaning toward tabling
Okay.
and looking at all of them in its entirety.
Okay.
Because these were first in the door, is my understanding. So I think I'd be more comfortable revoking my motion and then making a motion to table.
okay, so the process for revoking, this person who seconded be okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, so, just so we get this right, so we have a motion, was made and seconded, now the person who made the motion
Well,
wants to table, and the second person.
right, so from parliamentary procedure, if you rescind your motion, that's fine. It actually would be cleaner if Felix made a motion to table, because that's non-negotiable, non-discussable. If it's seconded, then you do it, and the motion just laid over, so.
And actually, then we just table that
Right,
motion,
right.
so there's no
Correct.
problem. So I will
Okay.
make a motion to table.
And then if
No
there's a
discussion
second,
on a motion to
Second?
table.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
okay,
Motion's been made and seconded to table,
right, and you go straight to a vote on that, so.
and yes, okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion passed. Okay, so does
Got that
that,
all straight, Dan?
You bet, you bet. Thank you. See you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Dan.
thank you. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So now we can move on to commissioner correspondence. And who would like to go first?
Madam Chair, I can start out. I had a CMRP meeting, also a joint meeting with the City of Elk River and the Fair Board, and then also the site visit to the proposed Big Elk Lake Park property with Representative Doubt that Bruce mentioned earlier in the meeting.
I can go next.
Okay,
This is the first. I think, let the record show this is a first. I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Is that the first time?
It's to me then. Been a Tri-County Solid Waste meeting, had an EDA meeting, AMC Board of Directors, Midwest Regional Lab last week, so I had a few meetings. And at this point, I want to make a public announcement that I will not be seeking reelection. It will come as no surprise to many people. I've been pretty vocal that I did not plan to run this time, but I will have spent 20 years on this board. Enjoyed working with all of you, and with that, we'll be saying goodbye come the 1st of January. But there'll be a press release that nobody will care about, but it truly has been a highlight of my life to be a part of this board and work with you all and all the employees here. So, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for giving us adequate time to plan the party. I
Yes.
appreciate the early notice.
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, and then mine, I'm not sure about this one on the 24th, so I'll have to come back to that one, but went to the city, and county, and fair board meeting on the 28th. And we had two meetings, one on the 12th, at 12 noon on the 29th, and another meeting on the, on the 28th, another one on the 29th, about, at the History Center with One Watershed, One Plan. We're looking at the central Minnesota one for the Mississippi. And then we had a Zoom meeting yesterday morning about legislative issues with AMC. And I guess that's it.
As long as Rhiann's available, I don't know if you'd want just her to give a quick update as well, so.
Leanne, are you able to do an update?
I can, or I can save it for the next meeting and really have a longer list, but
Whatever
it's up
works
to
for you.
Sure, I can do a quick update. Had a law library meeting on March 8th. Also had an APO meeting on March 10th. And then had a CMRP Transportation Subcommittee meeting on March 15th. And did a the Tri-County Solid Waste Advisory meeting on the 17th of March. And then also I had an options board meeting on March 28th. And went to the leadership training event up in Nisswa from the 30th through the 1st. Unfortunately, I missed the last part of it on Friday. Came down with being sick, so left early. Very good training. I will share some of the highlights and some resources and stuff, but it was a very good training. And that looks like about it for me.
Okay. I looked at my other access. So I did have on the 24th the East Central TZD Steering Committee meeting. And then on Friday the 1st, I had a Quad County Horticultural Search Committee meeting looking for someone for Ag Ed in our Quad counties.
If the board's amenable for the workshop, if we adjourn the meeting, maybe take just 5 minutes, but if we could have it in here so Rhiann can listen, that would be great. It's only a short item, about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Can, Madam Chair?
Yes.
You opened the mic to me, so here we go. One last comment I wanted to make on the leadership training event. It was really good to see. There was a lot of staff from other counties and stuff, because a lot of this training had to do with how to work and work well with people in your environment and co-workers and such, and different tools you can use to understand the different styles that make people and their personalities up. So it is something that I really, really would encourage us to look more into the future on encouraging participation, or whether we have something like that in our own county to support some kind of training. I just found it very, very great information, and it would really, really prove to be beneficial to everybody in their work environments. That's it.
Thank you for sharing that. I totally agree. We'll have to look into that. Okay, so now if we adjourn, how long do we want to be?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? 7? 7, okay.
Okay, we're going to stay here.
Yep. This
And then
room.
we'll come back here for our open workshop meeting.